Hi, and welcome to 10 Kids, 2 Docs, Parenting Insights from Pediatrician Moms. I'm Dr. Sylvia Bank.
And I'm Dr. Vivian Carlin. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Today we are discussing screens. This time we're specifically focusing on social media. This is part 2 to a part 1 that we've already released where we discussed the pitfalls of social media, things every parent should be aware of when they're making decisions about their teens and when and how to give them social media. Well, now we are going to have a frank discussion revealing what decisions we made as parents for our kids. So let's jump in.
Welcome to the 10 Kids, 2 Docs podcast. Seasoned pediatricians and longtime friends, Sylvia Bank and Vivian Carlin have counseled thousands of parents and are raising 4 and 6 kids, respectively. Join these doctor moms as they incorporate fun and their combined wisdom and experience to share parenting insights for anyone looking for practical and trustworthy guidance. Please note that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment from your doctor.
Sylvia, what did you do with your first child?
Right. Our oldest child is a boy, and social media was not something that he was really looking for. I mean, his focus during those preteen teen years was more around video games. So social media was not a big ask for him. He wasn't really seeking that. And as many of the listeners know from previous episodes on screens, we were a very restrictive family when it came to screens. Very strict rules, very regimented time allowances, and very limited content. So I think it probably wasn't even honestly on his radar to even ask for social media. So we were kind of fortunate, right, that it didn't really come up very much.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because, as you know, I have a son who is about a decade younger than your oldest boy.
Right.
And so he's in 9th grade right now. And I asked him recently if he wanted social media. And he was kind of like, well, I mean, yes, sort of. Like, I guess it would be cool to have social media, but not really, because I can just text my friends. But what he really wants is gaming time.
Yeah, there was actually a period of time where I kind of suggested, hey, are you missing out on some group chats or whatever? And he was like, meh. He didn't really care. So it never really came up. And then when he went to college, he actually got social media for himself then. I mean, he's 18 years old, signed up for social media. And right now he's older and he's on social media. He hasn't missed a beat. He was definitely late to the game, very, very late to the game. Well, that being said, when we think about social media, we think about the classic platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. But my older son actually was on a separate type of social media related to his sports, and it's called Strava. Which is a running and biking type sports social media.
Yeah.
And so he was on that and had friends and connections from his sports community. And there was a little bit of social media component where you could comment on your workout and then people could give you kudos on your run.
Okay. So then what happened next?
Yeah. So my second child is a girl and it's a totally different story. And she was also very social as well.
Yes.
So this was kind of more like the combination of, I think, what most parents are dealing with when it comes to their kids wanting social media. And part of her hesitancy, honestly, is that she knew that her brother didn't have it. How is she going to get something before he does? He's older, right? In the birth order.
Oh, so she's approaching you before he's hit that 18 and he doesn't even have it yet.
He doesn't even have it yet. And he's 2 years older. So she thinks funny. Whenever he gets it, it's going to be 2 more years before she gets it. Right. So it was a larger negotiation for her. Right. And at the time that she was approaching middle school, a lot of her peers were getting on social media. And I think she didn't even ask in middle school because her brother was in high school and didn't have it. So she definitely knew how her peers and her best friends consumed it. And she saw what other people in, her middle school were posting. So she was very aware of its presence and how it was being utilized. And it was probably closer to like the start of high school that she started inquiring. I think she kind of asked maybe once a year. And then it was still like, no, let's wait until you're 16. But by the time she got her social media, she was 16. She was a sophomore in high school. By the time she got it, I think at that point, she had seen her peers have it for whatever, like 4 years. And seen the ups and downs at which some of her best friends went through some difficulties with social media. Like initially, it was, oh, this is so great. Everyone has it and I don't have it. Then she saw her peers, have struggles, maybe some bullying, maybe some miscommunications, maybe some posts that shouldn't have been posted. And by the time she was 16, I think she had gotten over that fascination hump and had more of a realism as to the pros and cons herself of having seen her peers go through the ups and downs of social media. I think she didn't approach it with that emphatic infatuation that sometimes kids have when they're in middle school, and they're just getting it.
Sense.
Yeah. And learning how to be social at that time. So we kind of monitored it where it was on my phone. And soon thereafter that, and watching her a little bit on that, I was like, look, you seem pretty healthy. You're not like infatuated. It's not usurping all of your time. You're 16 and acting very maturely. Then I stopped monitoring and then let her kind of take over and monitor her own social media. And then for the subsequent two kids, they just got their social media at 16.
Right. Like once you've set that precedent, they know. They're watching, they know.
Right.
So I have, I have 3 that are past the age at which they've gotten social media, and I have 3 that are not at the age yet that they have social media. So this is sort of like a work in progress, but I do think when you have a large family, you can find that situation arise amongst your teens where they are going to point out any perceived injustice to you, right? And so with my oldest daughter, when she went through high school, we kind of established this parameter that in 10th grade, she got her first social media, which was Instagram. And then in 11th grade, she could get her second social media, which was her choice. And she chose Snapchat. Right. And so then when my son came up, and he was that like very early birthday, like right after the birthday cutoff, that first week of school, he got his, first social media in 10th grade. And then, his sister, who's 1 year behind him in school, but is at the end of is the very late birthday, is coming up behind him. And he points out to us that our system is very unfair because by our system, he will have to wait until he is almost 17 to get his second social media. And she will still just barely be 16 when she gets her second social media. We negotiated with him and we're like, okay, we'll change it to this. In 10th grade, you can have your first social media. When you turn 16, you can get your second social media. So basically he started 10th grade, he got Instagram. A week later, he came to us and was like, okay, I'm ready for Snapchat. And we let that go. I feel like that was like that was a measure in promoting family peace because he was just insistent that this was unfair. At any rate, because of that, we actually were inspired to make a spreadsheet on what our philosophy was. And we did it in quite detail because I feel like the first issue is at what age do you give them social media? And then the second issue was, do you monitor the social media? And I think there was this overriding principle in all of our decision making that was by the time they were in 12th grade, if they were demonstrating enough responsibility, we wanted all of the limits to be off, right? You have full freedom of your phone and your laptop and how much time you're spending on it and when you're shutting it down, and your phone can now be kept in your bedroom instead of down in the kitchen. All of that was going to come off so that they would have a year in our home where they had freedom and we were kind of seeing how they were self-regulating that time. And then I think the other thing, which we addressed in the last episode, is that in all of this decision making, there were these overriding principles of the emotional toll of social media and the addictive toll of social media. So I said previously, it's much easier to monitor time than content, right? So we had this whole spreadsheet created for how much time you could have on your social media per day, grade by grade. Like, if you got it first in 10th grade, then how much time could you have in 10th, how much time in 11th, and then in 12th, that all comes off. And so all of our cell phones had the screen time limits, the limits per app for every social media, and then also for the internet browser, because they can just get on the internet browser if they have availability to that. And then there was also a universal phone and laptop downtime that varied weekday and weekend. I mean, this was a very complex spreadsheet. That's what our son inspired us to do. Like, let's really lay this out so that going forward, everybody feels like, here's the plan. But then we also used that as a way to make it a contract, right? Like there was a contract of, here are the freedoms that we're going to give you. This is what we respect in return. And our list of responsibilities included, obviously, you're maintaining your grades.
Right.
that you are continuing to be respectful and kind to your family members, that you're continuing to serve our family through the jobs that you have and just in your general attitude towards others and to your siblings. We wanted them to like continue to be pursuing their faith, like some type of personal Bible time. I feel like this crossroads where as parents, we're considering giving our children social media, or similarly prior to that, giving them a cell phone, is a really good opportunity to have a discussion of, I'm going to give you this freedom, and in return, this is what I expect.
Yeah, I think it's also as you give permission for something as a parent, be it a cellular device or social media, it is your bargaining power at that point before you hand it over to them, right? To establish expectations and rules, to say, these are the criteria which you can have your social media. And if you break these rules, then we have the authority to take it away, right? It's much, much harder to enforce infractions or bad behavior, or if you see things in their life sliding like grades or their attitude towards you, it's very hard to take away a perceived privilege that has not been set as a conditional privilege, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to have forethought on what you expect, make a contract with your kids, and they know how they need to behave, right?
Yeah. And this is one of my favorite talking points when I see patients starting at literally like age 2 is, okay, let's talk about screens and screen time. And what I really want you to be thinking about as a parent is that you're establishing with your child at this early age that you are in control, that you're monitoring it, that you're making decisions about content and time. And this is going to continue until they're 18, right? Like we're just going to set this pattern now and it's not going to change so that it's not a surprise.
And I have a story to tell.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in our household, our router had restrictions on, our Wi-Fi. One of our Wi-Fis has restrictions and the other one doesn't. And all the kids' devices were on the restricted Wi-Fi. And my husband was giving his old iPad to our son. And the iPad that he gave our son was on the unrestricted network. We just didn't remember to switch the network because it was now a child device. And during this time, our son had his new iPad and there was a significant dip in his grades. And then, of course, my husband and I realized, okay, he's now had full access to this device that is no longer on our restricted network. So then we realized that, he was spending a lot of time on YouTube, which people consider social media as well.
Sure.
And then we had to re-crack down on the rules. And it was actually a learning opportunity for him where we had a direct effect from too much media exposure right there.
Yeah.
You were on this in an unrestricted way, and it interfered with the functioning of your normal school life. And look what happened immediately. It was a hard hole to dig yourself out of at that point, right?
It illustrates this idea of still having some checks in place, which for you and I both ended up being kind of like a contract of this is our expectations, and then being absolutely willing to restrict if needed. Like if this wasn't fulfilled, then something changes.
It's been a very interesting discussion hearing what I did with social media with my teenagers and what you have done with your teenagers thus far. I think in the second half, we should really explore what we would decide for social media given today's environment and the things we know about social media today.
Yeah, I feel like there's a number of things that I have been encouraged by in the interim between those first 3 and now as I've got more that are coming up. Do they get cell phones? Do they get social media? For one, there's been so much more parental awareness, right? You described Strava. I think more and more social groups have moved to like a specific social media app that is for that group. For example, my daughter was on one that was marching band specific. And that kind of takes away that sense that I felt with my oldest ones of, I can't communicate with my basketball team or whatever because they're all messaging through Instagram and I don't have it, right? I think that we've gotten away from that because we've created these other systems that are better for communicating without having to open Pandora's box of the whole social media app. So I've been very encouraged by that too. And then I think with my older kids, all of them have talked about how they have friends and they themselves that take social media fasts. Like they're very quickly in adulthood recognizing the dangers of the addiction and are like, I don't want this. And so they'll turn it off, or they'll take a fast, or they'll quit using it. I think all of mine at some point have used Snapchat at different points, and all of them have come around to like not really using it. But they'll realize this is a time sink, or this isn't actually building relationships.
So my question for you is, as your younger set of 3 are approaching that age that your older set had gotten social media, what do you think you would do different, if anything, raising teenagers today, right now?
Well, I feel like an exceptional benefit that my younger 3 have is that they are all now in school systems where they're not allowed to have a phone out. And that's our public school. I think your public school is the same. They're not allowed to have a phone out at all during the day, including lunchtime. Phone goes away. And our older children, yours and mine, were in that blip where none of that had happened. Right. So there was more of this pressure because that's what everybody's doing. They're on their phone all day. They're checking their social media all day. I'm like fully missing out on all of that social interaction because all of it is happening through the phone. Whereas now that's not happening through the phone. So some of that fear of missing out has changed. So I don't have regret about how we did things with our older kids. I have some regret that they had to be in high school and middle school during this blip of time where social media hit the scene with such vigor, and parents and the AAP and everybody else didn't even really have time to react. So tell me, in the office, we all want to talk about this because we know it's so important for teenagers' health. We have like 30 seconds, 2 minutes max, maybe. Like, what do you possibly say?
If they haven't started it yet, let's hold off until 16. If you have started it, make the parents very mindful that it is your job as the parent. If your 11-year-old is on social media, who are they friends with? How much time are they spending on it? And then see how is that being monitored. So I plant the seed that it is a parent's responsibility when they're that young to be attentive and involved in almost every aspect of their child's social media.
Yeah, I want to ask you another follow-up question here, because we all, to some extent, have been parenting a little bit like, flying the plane as we're building it in this aspect of social media. So if I'm a listener and I have a 13-year-old with social media and I'm concerned, they're starting to develop a lot of symptoms of anxiety. What advice do you give me? What would you say?
Yeah. We do screening for every teenager for depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
So usually I will look at their screening questionnaire as a full picture of how social media may be affecting their lives. And sometimes when they start having behavioral problems, they start refusing to go to school, they're starting to have some school disciplinary problem, we will talk about the screen use. And usually in the office, both the parent and the kid knows. They know that they're on social media too much, or the parent senses it. And the kid sometimes, like you've alluded to, knows that it's not great for them, but everyone is resistant to change. That's usually the sense that I have when problems start developing. And I am the person that says, this needs to change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I am the person that says, Mom, your job now is to follow your child, monitor their social media, see who their friends are, and limit their time. I'm almost like the person acknowledging the elephant in the room and giving the parents permission to get more involved in their child's social media life, and tell the kids, this is not good for you. And I know you know it, right? To reset the parenting parameters to give them new grounds for negotiation, right?
Yes. I think this is a super important piece to think about as a primary care provider. There are a number of things where part of our role is to be the bad guy, to be the one that's saying with authority, it's time. So it's not the parent making the decision. Some of that is off of them. It's time now to make change, even to have a contract between the parent and the child and you in the room.
Right.
I think it's also important to set parental expectation that if you have that 8th grader who has social media and you're starting to see these red flags that this is not a good thing, you still have the power to take that away.
I think that in this day and age, as a pediatrician, my first and foremost advice is to hold off on social media until your child is 16.
I like that too. I think in my overarching advice, I would turn people back to what are the pitfalls of social media. There's an emotional toll that it's going to take as far as not only what it's feeding your child, but what kind of feedback they're getting about themselves through their interactions with this online group of friends. I would be regularly asking your child, how are you feeling about it? What are your interactions like? What are you being fed on your newsfeed? And then the addictive quality. I would absolutely exercise my parental right to be monitoring the time somehow.
Yeah. And I love what you did with your family, establishing what the AAP recommends, a family media plan and a contract and agreement and expectations for your child, both with how they utilize their social media and how they are navigating their real life. That is a great way of establishing some rules, no matter what age you decide as a parent to introduce social media.
Yeah. I have hope that this next generation coming up is going to do this better than we were able to do it.
I do too.
This is 10 Kids, 2 Docs. I'm Dr. Vivian Carlin.
And I'm Dr. Sylvia Bank. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to 10 Kids, 2 Docs, hosted and created by Sylvia Bank and Vivian Carlin. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and recommend our podcast to other listeners. Visit our website at 10kids2docs.com, where you can find links to social media and leave comments or suggestions. Back next week with more topics in parenting.